What?
Episode 317, right around St. Patty's Day, the 17th.
Wow. Yeah, nailed it. This is really close. Today we're talking about sleep patterns in both men and women, and most importantly, where?
Babies.
In the baby. So we'll see you on the inside. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Prime Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and as always, I have the beautiful, wonderful Dr. Julie McWyss today. How are you? Yeah.
I don't even have anything to come back to that.
Yeah, well, I'm Officer Patio Furniture.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I had so many jokes. Oh man, put on the spot. I can't even come back with anything.
Well, let me ask you this. If you have a baby, newborn, if they sleep through the night, are you considered lucky or not?
Ooh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would think that you are thinking that you're pretty darn lucky.
Yeah, I would say so. You're pretty blessed because it's not normal for a newborn to sleep through the night.
And there's reasons why, survival.
Survival, yeah. They got to get up. They got to eat. They should be moving.
Those little leprechauns.
And we're talking about sleep today with both babies and men and women. Dads, you're definitely going to want to check this one out too, because sleep is one of those things that deprivation, and it can be horribly bad for your body. And when we're talking about babies are one of the things that parents want to have sleeping as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why is because it disrupts their sleep cycle.
Yeah, I mean it's that routine of, I think, like, if there was a memo book or like the handbook that came home with the baby, mm-hmm. or like that showed up when after you had the baby, like it was just attached maybe to their ankle or something, that said, get rid of all of your traditional routines, duties, expectations, and just go with the flow.
Yeah.
I think if we could honestly live that way, pretend like this is vacation and we have nothing to do, no other responsibilities, that could just bring about a whole different way to think about raising a child. But that's not quite the world we live in.
No, I think we're given a bunch of false expectations, to be quite honest with you, because, the one couple over there, their baby slept through the night at 4 weeks. The other baby took 14 months. The other baby took half a year. Like, we are the 100% proof of that. Mm-hmm. Peyton, our daughter,
6 weeks.
6 weeks. She slept through the night at 6 weeks. I remember flying out of bed. You guys have heard this story before. I flew out of bed that morning and was like, how did she not get up during the night?
And I couldn't move.
You couldn't move because your boobs were just
overflowing.
You were full and couldn't move. You had rocks. You were like, I hurt so bad. Go get her, please. And I ran in there and she was breathing and fast asleep. And then I came back in and I asked you, do I wake her up? You said yes. She came in, she breastfed, still slept some more. And you got a little bit of relief, I think.
I think instead of like eat, sleep, and poop, it should be sleep, eat, and poop.
Yeah,
maybe.
It should go together. It should.
Because that sleep is really important, but it's not going to be on potentially your schedule, and the sleep training and to doing all these things, like that's just messing with the baby's neurology.
It is, and it's really hard on them actually. Mm-hmm. Babies actually, when you sleep train them, when you actually create a dissociation from you and them. It's a cutoff thing. It's like getting the umbilical cord cut too. There's a massive step between you and them then, and you create these walls and these barriers, and they shouldn't be there. There's been psychological study after psychological study showing that there is actually a detachment that happens at that point, which is very hard on your child's psychology. Because go ahead.
I was going to say, it may not show up then, but like that's when you start looking at the research later on in life of the different personalities or the habits or the tendencies of, well, why didn't you come to me for that? Well,
you kind of detached it.
You kind of like forget a little bit about like why those things are popping up. Mm-hmm. But that's some of the stuff that we've seen.
And that'll flip your noodle. Like if you go back into these different readings and start looking at psychology as we age, a lot of it came from our childhood cutoffs when certain deadlines were hit and certain marks that we were forced into, that we chose to force our children into as parents because we didn't know any better. And it's really hard on the child. And it's really hard at how they got changed or where that gap happened. And getting a kid to sleep is it's actually not the easiest thing in the world, and it's not the hardest. It's trying to figure out those rhythms and trying to figure out where you fit into this cycle and where they fit into the cycle. That's the key. And I always like to use the adage of our children, we don't sleep train our children sleep train us. They actually start changing the way our sleep habits are. And just like an alarm clock in the morning.
Right.
You wake up at 5 o'clock every morning to an alarm clock. Eventually, you don't need your alarm anymore. You wake up at 4:40 or 4:50. It's just how your body's prepped and ready to go. Babies are the same way. They eat very cyclically, like on a very regimented schedule based on how their hunger is, not based on what the clock says. And that right there, remember, time is a man-made construct.
Right.
The up and down of the sun and the moon, depending on what part of science you sit,
right,
that's a rhythm, right?
That's the rhythm. That's what they're following. It's the same thing like watching the waves come in from the ocean. That is how our bodies are in tune. It's not based on, oh, it's 11:30, let's go eat, or this is what my lunch break is, or this is when we need to eat dinner. That's not the expectation that we can expect from a newborn baby. But I mean, throughout, right? So like even like as kids go through 5, 7, 10, 12, like you wonder why, no, this is dinner time, this is when we eat, like, but I'm not hungry now. And then you're wondering why like a half an hour later they're hungry. It's sometimes it's those rhythms that are still processing through them.
Those rhythms were brought out by man during the Industrial Revolution. And that does not fit normal eating habits of humans to begin with. And same thing with sleeping. And we talk about this a lot when we're talking about sleep for adults, is we need sun exposure through the day. We need light exposure. The reason why is that that light exposure actually triggers us to be awake. And when that happens, our body then will go through a very cyclical rhythm to put itself to sleep. And it puts itself to sleep after the sun goes down. And when the sun starts to go down, your melatonin starts going up. There's different neurotransmitters in your body that are released. But the one thing around you that is really key to that is your baby. Your baby is extremely key to its environment because that's how it's being developed right now. You can't sit there and explain to your newborn that I need you to eat at noon so dad can get back after his 1 hour lunch break. I need you to eat at 6 and then, hey, your bedtime's at 8. Like it just doesn't work like that. Ever.
And I think the struggle is, I mean, we're in the Midwest, so it's sometimes a little bit more difficult to get that sunlight. But we see it also in the summertime. Like if you never leave your house, like we just did an episode on postpartum depression. So if that baby is cooped up inside all day long, and maybe you're in a condo or you're in an apartment and there's maybe only one window, and if you're not in front of that window, that's where that baby isn't going to be able to get those cues of sunlight to begin the wake up process and the go to sleep process.
Yeah, you see, your babies are like Superman. They are. He uses the sun to generate energy and power. That's what he uses to heal, to get energy, to fight Zod, and all these things that happen on Earth because he's around Earthlings. But Superman uses the sun. Your baby's the same way, and so is your body. You have to have the sun as your life force and your nutrition source. It is a form of nutrition for your body because it provides the most important vitamin in your body, which is vitamin D. And that's a major vitamin, and it needs to be there. And what's happening is when our kids are around constant, now there's people in camps that'll say like, there's no research saying that blue light changes the way you fall asleep. Yes, there is. It directly affects your pineal gland. And that is a problem because then that directly affects how melatonin is produced, which is a neurotransmitter
Well,
and a hormone.
and that's the struggle of, and I'm not calling anybody out specifically, but you get up in the middle of the night with that baby, and we can't just sit now and bond with that baby. What's coming with us?
Cell phones.
We have the phone with us.
Yep.
You know, and the struggle is the baby may not be looking immediately at it, but it's still like I could close my eyes right now and I know that there's still something, there's a light shining on me. So it's that same thing if like you're thinking, well, we'll just be in a dark room and maybe I'll feed the baby and baby will fall back asleep or co-sleeping, but what do? We pull that phone up. So then we're also messing with our own sleep patterns, right? But then that's also affecting baby.
Yeah, and that is 100% the case because we see it all the time. You know how many moms text me at 3 a.m. because they're up breastfeeding, asking a question for later on in that morning for me to answer back because I know they're on their phone then. And it happens a lot. And then they wonder why they can't get back to sleep or baby can't get back to sleep because you've created such contrast and that light's so bright, it actually wakes baby up because it thinks the sun's around. And then their body starts responding to the sun.
And it's not immediate. It can be like 2-3 days, right? And that's like that cycle that's where like follow the moon phases, right? It's kind of like it has to go through that entire cycle. It's not just a 1 night, 2 night thing.
Yep. Number 1 then, get your baby really good sun exposure. Get their eyes exposed and yourself so your body starts setting its circadian rhythms, its internal clock back to that amazing sun that's out right now. The other thing is that it needs really good nutrition. The baby needs incredibly good nutrition. That breast milk should be there if you're fortifying it. Hopefully you're not. So your body's actually, you're fortifying it through the nutrition you're taking in and not trying to add something to it like rice or cereal or something like that. The milk that you're producing for that baby is absolutely perfect. But there's a couple things that moms will be told to avoid during their breastfeeding years, and they don't talk about really, really good fats that need to be in that diet and really high amounts of protein.
Absolutely.
Hang on 1 second. Nope. And, absolutely, right?
It's vital. I mean, we talk about just like really good nutrition, but that's also important based upon the age of your baby and what that baby needs to be able to grow and develop and, the neurology, the brain building, all of the things that are happening and also for mom for repair.
Yeah, exactly. And protein is a big one. I'd like to tell moms that they should be consuming 1 gram of protein for 1 pound of body weight for themselves. So if most moms are, let's just use 135 pounds. 135 pounds is, if you're trying to be at that weight or you are at that weight, you should be, if you want to stay there, you should be consuming 135 grams of protein a day. And the 2 most important meals of the day to get your protein in is in the morning and at night. Those are the 2 very important spots. That midday snacking and stuff happens, but having an amazing protein-based meal in the morning is what sets your body up through the rest of the day to seek out protein instead of seek out sugar. Yep. Instead of seek out processed sugar. Let's just be real blunt with that too. Processed sugar. Sugars from fruits are very good for you. We don't need to consume solid fruit, but fruit itself is very, very good. It's going to pack a ton of
in its raw
sugar.
form. Yep.
In its raw form. It's wonderful. High fructose corn syrup, not a good thing. But that's the thing is, we have a lot of moms that come in that eat energy bars that are trying to put protein in, but the sugar is high in it. And the protein they're putting in is in the form of whey. It's in the form of casein.
And that's the struggle. Let's be honest. It is it's so hard to navigate. Like you want to get the protein, you want to do all the right things. You maybe want to start to lose some baby weight. You're in a hurry and you don't know where to start. And we can help with that. I mean, we're touching on a little bit, but just really be cautious of the source of what the protein is that you're eating. And it's really not all that difficult to, if you like the convenience of protein bars, that you can make those at home with whole nutrition, really good ingredients.
Yeah, or you buy from good companies. Correct. Like Standard Process makes Possible bars. Like those things are incredibly dense with protein. There's 10 grams of protein in every bar. But again, we need to throw caution to that too. Because when you do eat these protein bars, when you do eat these bars, sometimes people, they don't realize how much nutrient dense that bar is. So they'll eat one and then like
And
literally
then
an hour
grab
later,
two more.
they'll grab two more, and they don't let their body take time to process it. I mean, we had to have that conversation with our son and our daughter when they eat them. And it's like, hey, like
It's not
there's,
take two, this is my
yep,
breakfast. It's like, no, that's an actual, like, that
that's a
could be like a
meal.
meal.
Yep, there's that much density in that. There's that much protein. And the other thing with our moms in to help babies sleep is really proper hydration.
Yeah.
Proper hydration. Moms need to be getting in a lot of water to produce more milk and to keep their supply up. And that is actually one of the number one things when a baby doesn't sleep properly is mom's supply is usually low. And they're supplementing. So they have to supplement formula. But I'm telling you right now, a 2-month-old baby should not be eating 6 to 8 ounces of formula per feeding.
That's way too much.
It's way too much. You overfeed. So what happens then is you're turning your baby into a competitive eater. So what happens then is that we're causing stretching of the stomach, which then makes them feel more hungry when they aren't full.
Well, it's stretching the stomach, but then they have like gas pains,
Yep.
and then sometimes reflux will happen from that, but they're uncomfortable, right? Because they have so much in there. And then that's why then they're not sleeping because they're not comfortable. They're agitated. They just like, sorry, yeah, it's the overeating, and we see it so often that as soon as a baby cries, and maybe I'll find the video, but there's 3 sounds that a baby makes. You can tell if they're tired, if they're hungry, or if they're in pain.
Yep.
And so we can start to just kind of tune into that. It's gonna be like, what the heck? That's like unlocks everything. But as soon as a baby cries does not automatically mean they are hungry. And I think that's the tendency of like, oh, let's just go, get them to the breast, or put the bottle in there right away. It's just we need to understand, okay, what is the baby trying to tell me?
Yeah, is there a difference between hungry versus nurture and calming? And that's actually a number one sign that we see with postpartum in our previous episode that we didn't talk about, is that the minute the baby cries, the mom wants to breastfeed the child or goes and grabs the baby because you see a panic in their face, and that's a chemical change, and we got to support mom on both sides of that. But this proper hydration is key. Mom should be consuming between probably right around 130 to 200 ounces of water a day.
Yeah, and definitely if you're breastfeeding, and if you're coffee drinker, if there's caffeine, right, that means that doesn't count towards that hydration. We're talking like good hydration, electrolytes that can be absorbed in the body, not the caffeine additives that are, counteracting that hydration.
Yeah, feed your body, feed your baby. The other thing is we've talked about vitamin D for baby and vitamin D for mom, probably between 8 to 10,000 IUs a day in vitamin D. That's really important for mom. Getting that really good sun exposure, which helps baby fall asleep. Feeding them well with really good nutrient-packed breast milk, which is super important. And then I think thirdly is starting to understand that bedtimes for babies doesn't have to be later at night. It can actually be way earlier in the day. And that was one of the things that we noticed with our son, Brecken, versus Peyton.
Sorry. I was like, yeah, because the tendency is that we want that child to sleep through the night. So if we're going to stay up later, if we put the baby to bed later, that means that, okay, maybe they won't get up at 4 o'clock. Maybe they'll sleep until 5 or 6. And that's not, again, if we follow the sun, right, that rhythm, you're missing that window. And it sounds counterintuitive, but like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, sometimes that is that prime time for that baby to be going to sleep.
Well, that's a common thing, is that most babies, when we get them in here at Prime Family Centers, is parents will say, well, they have their witching hour. They've got their little witching hour. Well, when is that? Oh, it's between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. That hour and a half, they're usually miserable. They're crying. They're really, really upset. Well, 9 times out of 10, you miss their sleep pattern. So they were ready to go to bed at 4:30, 5 o'clock and go down for the afternoon. And go down for the night, sleep 4 to 5 hours, wake up at 10:30, eat again, and then probably go down for another 4 hours. And then they might get up every 2 hours. Well, here's the thing that's tough with that, is that doesn't match our schedules. Most parents and most adults don't go to bed between 9 and 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. Well, if baby's been down since 5 or 5:30 and then gets up 4.5 hours later to eat, you're getting ready for bed. And now baby's up to eat, and it completely changes everything. But that's the normal sleep cycle of an infant, especially a newborn.
Again, that is the hat that you are wearing during the infant, newborn, sometimes into a little bit of toddler stage. And if you could just understand that this is what it's going to be, and set it up that, okay, if I heard somebody else say that their child slept the night, that's not the norm, right? If we can normalize the expectation that maybe we need to get up at every 2 hours and the baby sleeps every 4 hours, then okay, that's a great thing. And I think that's where we get exhausted.
Yeah.
But hard. Then as the parent, if you're exhausted, when you look at that child, the child is also exhausted because they aren't getting their best sleep.
Well, then you got a little ticked off leprechaun, and he's upset, and he don't want anything to do with you, and he's overtired. And if you remember when you were a child, when you got older, and you, like, let's say you were tired, the last thing you wanted to hear from your parent is that you need to go to bed, you're overtired.
You look sleepy.
Yep, you're overtired. And I've said that to our kids. I'm like, you're overtired, you need to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed. It's like, that's how your baby is though too, is like when they hit that overtired phase, and every one of you have been in it too. Like, let's say you're trying to study. Every one of you try to stay up at some point during the night too late. And then you get overtired, and then all of a sudden your body says, whoa, we are overtired. I'm going to start kicking off cortisol. I'm going to start kicking off more adrenaline. And then you wake up. And now you're up, and now you're up.
Well, I think this is probably a timely episode for us because this is going to be dropping right around daylight savings. So all of you that are thinking, oh, I don't have this issue, it's daylight savings. It's still happening. And that hour can potentially take 6 to 7 months for our babies to get back on track. So set that expectation of understanding, okay, the sun, like how the day is starting and ending is a little bit different from what our clocks are saying, but understand our children, our babies are still going to follow that sun pattern.
Really sun rhythmic pattern. And once you understand that sun up to sun down and get this time pattern down, your life will be easier. Now,
rainbows and gold coins.
Rainbows and gold coins. The last thing I want to talk about, Dr. Julie, is the baby's ability to soothe itself. And let's talk a little bit about chiropractic here, because chiropractic is notoriously amazing at getting a child's nervous system to calm. That's what we do.
Helps with sleep.
That's what we do. And when we get the nervous system to calm itself down, when we get the brain to start communicating properly with the body starts to calm itself down and run on a very good, amazing rhythm and clock.
A very exact and precise program.
Yeah, it's exactly what it does. And it's the same thing with babies. So when they're under stress, when they're subluxated, their body's not communicating well, they're already kicking off tons and tons of cortisol. They're already in fight or flight. And the only time you sleep when you're in fight or flight is in exhaustion. When your body makes you shut down, makes you go to sleep.
That's after the witching hour.
And that is not restful sleep.
Right.
That is not regenerative sleep. That is not recovery sleep.
Put that into perspective for an adult, right? If you go out for like an all-night bender, right, and you're drunk and you pass out, you wake up and you're like, what the heck happened? But that wasn't real sleep. It's like that's what's happening with our kiddos.
Do you ever heard of binge eating?
Yeah.
Do you really feel full after you binge eat? Because you get crap food in when you binge eat. You really do. You ever heard of binge sleeping? Nope, because I just made it up. Binge sleeping is the same way. When we're trying to get excess sleep to make up for lack of sleep, your body doesn't sleep normally. It sleeps under stress. Binge sleeping is not okay. I like that term.
It's kind of like we're just gonna let's throw it in here, let's throw it in there. That's like throwing the kid in the car seat and going for a car ride or a walk. It's okay, we need to actually prep for this, to go through a bedtime routine, a nap routine, to allow the child to self-soothe, calm, sleep, and then awake at their time.
Decompress that system down.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to add in on this one, Dr.
No.
Julian Sleep?
Oh, don't do that.
I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Share this to parents because this is a tough one. Moms and dads out there listening, you both need your sleep. You both need to figure out your sleep patterns and why the science behind it is so important. And for your child, remember, you're growing through your entire life. Your body's always helping itself out. So share this to as many people as you can. Dr. Julia and I are on a mission to get to over 100,000 subscribers this year. We're well on our way. We need your help. Share this to people, subscribe, and let's make people as healthy as possible. Get out there, get it done. Bye, everyone.